Happy Sunday, my people. Welcome to Software Sundays. I am the host, KD, and in this show, we talk about everything tech. We learn how to improve as engineers and make sure we're growing and becoming the best versions of ourselves so we can help our teams in the roles that we find ourselves. And so, we're going to discuss some of the latest news that I feel is relevant for the technology industry, as well as answering a few questions that can help you and I improve in our careers. And so with that being said, let's get started, and thank you for being here. So to start, I'm going to talk about the Genesis Mission Project. And this is a U.S. Executive order that was put out by the president to accelerate and organize the AI development inside of the U.S. The main takeaway that I saw is obviously that AI is the future. And we're not in a late stage of it. We're actually in one of the earliest stages of AI and what it'll do for society and culture moving forward. Right now, this executive order and project is meant to create a concerted effort of American resources and different departments to start collaborating more and pooling their resources so that as a country we can see better and innovation inside of AI and what it can do in other areas such as transportation, housing, science, and health research. Basically, the goal is not to lose this AI race. We as a culture and a country are having to figure out during this cultural shift and during this technological shift, how do we use AI to make sure that no one is left behind and that we are moving forward as quickly as possible so we can remain competitive as a nation. And the fact that this type of initiative is coming from the highest levels of the government means it's going to get the traction that it needs in order to have the resources that we need as people on the ground to actually continue to develop. So that means the education, making sure that the people who are going to be using the AI software are understanding what can be done with it, understand how to use and apply the technology, at creating the infrastructure, making sure we have the networking and compute in place to make the investments in AI possible. And it's very difficult to get one team aligned on the goal of creating an AI project or using AI in some type of product or project. And the fact that we're going to see that type of, or we're hoping to see that type of cohesion from a government, like federal government level, is, it's good to see, but I am curious how it'll actually be applied because there are a lot of different things happening that need to be aligned on every stage and every level. Even with data privacy, we see different states having their own laws and regulations on how data must be protected, and that causing some issues with different technology platforms on how and when they can, deploy their products in that region or in that environment. I'm curious how this type of order is going to be applied on the state level and even the local like city levels to make sure that everyone has all of the opportunities to not just get swept up with the current and have things changing around them, but how do we make sure that everyone who is going to benefit from AI is also part of the solution to create the plan for AI? And I don't know if it should be a top-down type of approach, and I'm curious how this order thinks about pulling together the right ideas and right thoughts from diverse groups to make sure everyone has a seat at the table. But it is interesting that people are talking about an AI bubble, and with good reason. I'm sure people have seen cases where technology companies and overinvestment inside of technology has caused issues. But the fact that we're still behind enough for there to be a federal order to say, hey, us as a government or as a country, as a nation, need to be more critical about how we are managing the resources we have available to deploy AI, to me, means that we're not in a bubble. Yes, we're in a growth phase, meaning I expect to see continued investment inside of data centers, inside of semiconductors, and the infrastructure needed to manufacture those chips in the country. I'm expecting to see more of that. And it's very interesting where we're going. And I think it's still pretty early. It's too early to tell, who's going to be a loser in the race. I don't think anybody in the Mag 7 is actually at risk. Their applications and products don't rely on the platform to be a success. They are like Meta. They are in media. Media can benefit from having AI as another feature inside of their products, but it's not like AI is the main use case for their media company. Same for Amazon. Retail and logistics can benefit from AI from a software perspective and a physical AI perspective, but it's not like we're gonna need packages to not come when we need them ordered, or it's not like we're going to see less demand for all of the products that Amazon provides. So from a bubble standpoint, I don't think we're there for those types of companies, but it's even possible that the companies that are heavily reliant on AI as a platform, even they are going to be okay, at least for the next 18 to 24 months, because even more investment from a executive level is going to be put inside of that infrastructure. So expect to see more of everything required to build AI, because we're at a capacity crunch and the government does not want to lose. And next, for more AI, because apparently AI is everything, there was a presentation from Benedict Evans, who is like a tech savant or thought leader that puts out a yearly kind of summary about where we are in technology and innovation and where we're likely to go moving forward. And his main point in this year's edition was that AI is eating the world. And the fact that this new platform is just the most recent S-curve that existed, that's going to exist. We've had web, we've had smartphones, we've had mobile, and then now we're getting into AI. And I know people mention blockchain. So it was interesting to me when I looked through his notes that he didn't mention the blockchain as a platform that has its own, has its own wave. AI was the most recent one, but it seems to me that AI plus blockchain is going to be what this platform is all about, what this new shift and wave is all about. Because every day we're seeing products like Nano Banana that are creating more and more realistic videos and images, and the AI voice assistants are starting to sound more and more realistic. And so AI from a augmented reality standpoint, and I say augmented as in the reality that we're seeing is not fully real anymore. You're going to start seeing things that are 100% generated by AI that you cannot verify whether it's real or not. And the fact that we'll have blockchains in place, I believe, is going to be how AI is prevented from just being a thing that we can't control. I believe that AI is going to have a fact checker. Like, when Facebook had to put up when a post was real, or when there wasn't enough sources to verify if some type of claim being made on Instagram or Facebook was real. I believe that AI is going to have a similar check or tag in place to verify if something was really said or not said by the person who it was. When we think about blockchains and everyone having their own unique wallets, that's going to be incredibly important, because we're going to need some type of way to not just identify who is who, but we're going to need a way to say that this is coming from a verified source. AI on the current web platform or web internet, it doesn't really provide that trust that we'll need. And so I think blockchain is going to be the linchpin to make sure that we can have some type of trust inside of an AI generated era. And even tying back to the Genesis mission project, the hyperscalers like Meta, like Google, Microsoft, AWS, they are still continuing to invest heavily into the infrastructure to build AI as a platform. Recently, AWS had some issues meeting the capacity demands for AI resources and compute power on their infrastructure. And that even caused a few of their clients and customers to have to shift to other platforms like Azure and GCP in order to continue to scale those systems that rely on that hyper performant compute. The fact that we're seeing, I don't want to call it breakdowns inside of the infrastructure, but we're seeing that there's not enough capacity. And this is with the whole Mag 7 plus Nvidia with the world's most valuable company, or being the world's most valuable company, investing billions of dollars into the infrastructure. They've been investing for at least the last year, if not more. I mean, if not, probably even more. And they're still continuing to invest and planning to invest even more moving forward. And apparently that still was not enough investment. The government had to get involved to say, hey, we need to invest more into the space because it's not going to be enough. That's wild to me. That's super wild because it's making me wonder, where are we about to go and how fast are we going to get there? Because in the past, I think OpenAI released ChatGPT like 4 or 3. I forgot which one. They released it in December or November 2022. 2023, there was a little bit of usage, and it grew super fast into 2024, and especially now in 2025, where ChatGPT has almost 1 billion users. So one of the fastest growing products in history. And more companies are integrating AI into their systems. And this has been going for a few years now. And we've seen the products we use change, the services we rely on change, and things are moving faster. But it's still not fast enough. So I'm just curious what that next phase of faster development and higher velocity is going to look like. Because it's going to be powered by AI, powering more AI. So it's going to be interesting times moving forward. And even one of these use cases of AI is the OpenAI and Walmart partnership, where now users of ChatGPT are going to be able to shop and search and purchase items from Walmart directly through their chat windows. And again, this is just another use case of AI and how it's going to change the fabric of how people do business. If you expected a majority of the customers of Walmart to be going into the store, and I think Walmart was a little slow on moving into the e-commerce space because they did expect people to continue to go into their stores physically in order to buy things. And so when Amazon and competitors came along to make an entirely digital and internet first experience, they were behind. Now we're seeing consumers may not even be going directly from the internet or the app or the website in order to purchase products now. It's opening the door for AI to do the research, find and compare items, and make the purchase all through an agentic product. And so purchases may be made faster. They may be more, I don't know if as an agent, if they'll be more critical about the purchasing decisions they're going to make. And I guess that's definitely something that builders and engineers can implement inside of the products that will be doing the purchasing. But it's really going to come down to, can the retailers keep up with the increased demand and velocity of agentic software? And what other services that we now rely on humans to do, what else can be replaced by AI more cheaply and more quickly to provide the same or similar quality and results? Because now the shopper is not going to be you and I. The shopper is going to be a chatbot. And so that chatbot will be able to go through more listings and do more research than you and I may be able to do. So I wonder if that makes it more likely for the retailers to have to be more competitive with their pricing, or does it unleash a new era of dynamic pricing where the pricing bots from the retailers are competing against the purchasing bots that are assisting humans to come up with a number that is the most beneficial to both sides? So a lot will be changing in that area, and so it'll be interesting to see what's next there. And so I know everything is AI, and it's always going to be AI and AI and AI. But at the end of the day, engineers are the ones building this technology and deploying it into the world. And so it's important for us as technologists to understand how we not only use the technology and where it can be applied, but how do we make sure that we are maintaining our competitive edge as engineers to make sure the technology we're deploying and working on is created safely and for the benefit of everyone involved. So let's go over a few questions that may help you to be a better engineer.
Why do engineering teams use Agile?
So, an engineering team that wants to successfully complete a project needs to make sure that they understand the goal and that the stages along the way to meeting that goal are all aligned with that final output. We're not to the point where we can just say, let me think, and everything is the way it's supposed to be. So every project is going to require a significant amount of effort and energy to be kept on budget, on time, and on purpose. And we use Agile as a project management tool or methodology to make sure that those projects are meeting all of these goals effectively. And when you're building any type of product, especially software, the requirements that you have at the beginning of the project may not be the same requirements that you have at the end of the project or when you actually put it in front of your customer. And so traditionally, when you were making some type of software product, teams would use a waterfall methodology that began with all of the initial requirements and ideas and designs being done very early in the process, and then taking another year or maybe more to actually implement those designs and put them in front of the customer. And then once it was in front of the customer, it took a significant amount of effort and energy to make any changes based on the feedback that came in from the customer. And so the shift to agile was primarily to reduce the cost of building something that you found out later that the customer didn't need or didn't want. Agile allows teams to iterate their product, to release different versions of the project that can be put in front of your customer or in front of the user, so that you can get early feedback as quickly as possible, so that you don't go months or even a year without getting that feedback needed to continuously improve the product. With Agile and Scrum, teams will usually work in sprints, and every sprint will end in some type of demo, especially the farther along you get inside of the project. Very early on, when you have nothing and you're just doing some spikes and you're just trying to get the design together, you may not do a demo of a design. Although it is useful if you have some type of design doc that was created based on the early requirements, to actually disseminate that amongst your team so that you can get some buy-in, as well as uncover any questions that may come up just from this internal team. I believe that Agile should be paired with Waterfall to make sure that the things that we're building are actually aligned to some type of overall goal and long-term vision, but that can also be adaptable enough to change as new thoughts are added. And so if you are doing some type of PI planning, where every quarter or every year you come up with whatever the idea is going to be, whatever the goal is, and you have all of your teams included in those conversations to say, this is what we're going to build, this is why we're building it, this is who it's for, and having all of those questions answered, then during the actual iteration, or I say iteration being the large quarter or the large year, that iteration, this is what we're working towards. And then every week or 2 weeks or a month, as you're going through the sprints, you're taking that initial requirements, those initial ideas, and massaging them into something that can be, valuable to someone, and continuously refining that as you go along. So when we're thinking about AI and the speed at which we're now able to deploy software, we actually have an even easier chance to get something in front of a user faster, so that we can get their initial feedback, and so we don't continue to invest too much time and energy into a solution that is not the right solution for the problem that the customer is facing. So we're going to continue to move fast, but with Agile, we're able to move fast without losing sight of the thing that we're really trying to get to.
What soft skills do you need to excel as a software engineer?
So, as an engineer, you are responsible for taking a problem and turning that problem into a design and turning that design into a solution that can be used to solve that initial problem. And so the problem is going to be identified by the people who are experiencing it. That's going to be your customer. That's going to be the person with domain expertise that understands retail and customer psychology and understands the actual operations of the business super well and super deep. And you as an engineer understand the technical aspects of how to build anything with AI or with your chosen programming language or framework. You understand how to build the thing, but you may not understand why we're building it or who it or what even needs to be built. And so I would say the greatest skill that you need to have as an engineer is the ability to communicate and communicate both ways. So being able to understand what you're getting from that domain expert, from that business person, and being able to translate those ideas and those problems and those processes that are being described to you into something that is technically relevant. And then from the other side, being able to clearly articulate a technical solution in the bounds of the business domain. So it's the difference between saying I'm building an event-driven architecture and saying that to another engineer, which is they'll be able to understand that. But saying to a person who is responsible for the making sure that inventory is always accurate. They don't care that you're building this scalable, robust, event-driven architecture. They want to make sure that all of the metrics that they care about as it relates to the inventory is accurate. And they want to make sure it's always up to date. So how do you convey that information about the technical solution to them and the thing that they want to even talk about and understand? As an engineer, you need to refine your communication ability so that the people who you're speaking to understand where you're coming from and that you understand where they're coming from. There is a kind of idea inside of organizations that technical people are not the most they're not able to understand the business well, and that they use too much technical jargon, or that they're focused on the wrong things. And for many engineers, that may be true. If you're too busy writing the code and writing the most specific code and trying to use all the technologies available versus focusing on the problem that you're solving for, then you will create that reputation of not being someone who is able to solve the problem. So you have to focus on being able to communicate to the audience and using the ideas and the words that they need you to use so that they can understand. Because there's no point communicating to someone if they're not going to understand you or not be able to take the response that you want them to take. And same to you, if you're not able to communicate well, you won't know how to ask the right questions to make sure that you're getting the most detail that you need to build a solution. So whether it's playing team sports or whether it's building better relationships with friends and families and coworkers, or anything else you may do to help refine your communication skills, focus on that. Make sure you're thinking about the ways you're communicating and thinking about why you're communicating and what you're communicating and why. Because it's going to be incredibly important as we move forward and accelerate the things that we're building.
How should I pick a programming language to learn?
So I get this question a lot from people in college or people very early in their career. And I would say that the focus should not be on picking a language. You should focus on picking or finding a problem that you care to solve. Because every problem is going to require a different tool. And that's what a programming language is. It's just a tool that you'll use to solve a specific problem. So if you're interested in building video games, then you use a language like C++ or C, depending on the games that you're trying to build. Or if you're building some mobile games, you may use Swift. If you want to create web applications or portals, you need to use something like JavaScript, or if you're going raw HTML, CSS to build static web pages, or a framework like React or Angular to build a dynamic web application. And if you want to build high performance systems, you use a language like Golang. But at the end of the day, the problem that you're trying to solve is going to dictate the tool that you use to solve it. If you are familiar with any language, it will become easier to learn another programming language. So if you're not sure exactly which programming language or which problems that you want to solve, start with something. You can start with a C++, which is what I learned initially in college. And you'll learn the fundamentals of the language itself, but also of computer science. And that you'll learn fundamentals like what data is, what a variable is, what a function is. And these concepts can be applied across any language you end up working with in the future. And so the programming language you choose is more about aligning your goals and interests with the most compatible tool available for that domain. Me, personally, I choose to focus now on Python, Flutter, Golang, and that's the main languages I use. Flutter is not a language, it's a framework that uses Dart as the language. But basically, I have made it a point myself to only focus on these languages because they give me enough diversity to build anything that I may want to build. There's nothing I cannot build with that stack. And with AWS, where I can deploy anywhere across the globe. For my web applications, I use Golang in the backend to make sure they are lightweight, to make sure they are fast and performant. And I build on AWS so that I don't have to think too deeply about the infrastructure or the computers that I'm working with. And it's cost effective, at least for the current scale that I'm working in. Python is super useful for automating logic. I recently built a tool to pay my water bill because for some reason my city does not allow automatic payments. And so I would need to go in for my properties every month to make those payments. And so I made this script to do that automatically with Python. And Python is also very useful for ML and AL and artificial intelligence projects because a lot of the tooling is already built in those languages because it's coming from the data science realm. So yeah, just focus on the thing that you want to build, and the language will be a natural step from there.
What can I do to onboard quickly to a new project?
So as an engineer at EY, I used to go into a new project almost every year, or sometimes a few times a year. I would start a new project. And always you have some goal, or there's some type of objective for the project that you need to align with. And they're bringing you in for a specific role. Whenever you go in, you should go in with an open mind and clear objectives. You want to make sure you have a 30-day plan with specific tasks that you can use to gain as much clarity as possible about the product that you're working on or the project that you're going to be assisting, because you want to make sure you have all of the tools necessary to operate inside of your role. Make sure that the KT sessions that you do are, one, done very early, so you can ask all of those nitty-gritty questions. You want to make sure you're documenting any processes that are highlighted in those conversations. Make sure you understand the access requirements you need. Make sure you understand who is important that you need to know across the organization from a team member standpoint, but also from a team perspective to know who is responsible for this function or for this product or this infrastructure that you may rely on, that you may be responsible for maintaining for their benefit, because you may need to alert people when you make certain changes. So if you're going to need to onboard quickly, make sure you're getting that background and get it from the people that are on the team that you're going to, but also get it from the people that are working with the team that you're going to. Because the people on your team are going to give you their understanding of your role from their perspective, from what they think that they need to do or what they think they need help with. The customers or the clients, even if they're internal, that you're working with, they're going to give you the requirements and the role necessities from their perspective and what they need from you. And so you can even align during those early conversations to make sure that the things that you're being asked actually align with what the team expects you to actually be delivering. So make sure you're asking as many questions as possible and you're writing down everything that you learn, or definitely take notes, but also doing any type of screen recordings so that you can understand exactly which buttons to press or what to type in when the time comes for you to take over that responsibility. And that could be inside of a team where you're replacing someone, where I've had to go in quickly into a new team because someone was rolling off and I needed to take their place. So I needed to know exactly what they have been doing as my starting point so that I can know what I would need to do next when they actually were gone. And you may learn new things as you go through that you can add more value to that position or to that functionality that you're operating in. But it's really just focus on the KT. Focus on the knowledge transfer to make sure you understand exactly what you need to do and have it placed somewhere. And a quick tip for anyone joining a new team: whenever you join a team and you're getting that KT and you're documenting all of the processes, all of the roles, all of the access requirements, put that knowledge somewhere that is useful to the rest of the team. Because if it's taking you having to talk to people to learn what to do because it's not documented anywhere else, then it'll be super helpful for the team to have that knowledge documented somewhere else. So you can do the team a great service and have a very quick win early on just by sharing the things that you're learning from the different people that never document their knowledge.
What does a DevOps engineer do?
So DevOps is one of the core functions that every engineering team needs. If you're a DevOps engineer, you're going to be responsible for standardizing all of the processes that the development teams use in order to deploy their code, test their code, and run the code in any environment, whether it's testing, QA, or production. Your job is to make it easier for the teams around you to focus on new development. And that will mean automating testing. That will mean creating pipelines for continuous integration and continuous deployments. And that will mean creating resources that allow engineers to manage the infrastructure that you're responsible for more easily. And the real difference between a good DevOps engineer and a great DevOps engineer is their ability to create systems that scale and run without any manual intervention. And so that means that you're creating systems and a platform that allows the team to run more reliably and more predictably. And DevOps engineer, your role is to ensuring long-term success of it. Because as a developer, they focus on building the function and updating them to reflect the business logic. But they don't need any type of friction to be able to make those tests and roll back what's wrong. So make sure as a DevOps engineer that you're working how you allow people to move faster and see they do their work. And so with that, improve your ability and where you can provide new team, because that's what we're doing, right? When we join a team, trying to make sure that we some sell out and that's most very no our equation virtually are running calculation, but they'll have this clearance risky and whatnot. You will still impact of what I expect to receive. And in my life, you will more than I are looking for a sure thing. That's just because it has knowledge to make. And so my solution for being too risk conservative is that I don't spend too long trying to, learn everything before I jump in. I believe very strongly that the longer you take to get started, the more of an opportunity you're giving up. And so if you want to have the best success, it's not so much about calculating the risk, it's about taking the risk. And you don't need to know what type of, how risky it's going to be. Just make sure that you aren't, you shouldn't sell your house, right? Some things are a gamble. So I'm not advocating for gambling, but I know I plan on becoming even more aggressive with my risk taking, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, especially for the next 2 years, because I've experienced the worst of what could happen. I have seen my capital draw down. I have seen the short-term negative consequences from the risks that I was taking. But I realized that that short-term risk is nothing compared to the long-term risk that you may be giving up by not being a bit more aggressive. So I'm choosing to be aggressive to make sure that I start this show talking about the amount of growth about to see the AI I add to build upon. And so I focus on the speed. And the speed of